I'm in the principal's office today with Matt Casteel.
My office is not this.
No, it is not. But we're here talking about communication and excited to have you with us. This is Gabe Kolstad, Matt Casteel. We're here with the Midweek Motivation episode of the Westside Podcast. And we're following up from a weekend where we were talking about how to stop arguing and start communicating. Right. And I don't know if that hits you right where it hits most people, but man, I mean, at work, right, in the community, but certainly at home.
It hit me and my wife that day. Yeah, actually.
Did it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll tread gently on that one.
It's all right. We're past it.
Hey, I'm so excited to have this conversation with Matt. This is just an incredible human being in our community. But also my friend. And that's something that's really special to me.
Put up that front.
Yeah. Matt's had some great experiences, and I kind of want to pull on some of those because you've lived in different realms of the world that honestly some people just haven't, and we don't know what it would be like to be an Army Ranger.
Right.
We don't know. I don't know what it would be like to be a high school principal. I don't know what it would be like to be a Green Beret.
Right.
I know what it would be like to be married, and the home life and things.
More complicated than all of those.
Probably.
Together,
I would imagine.
Right.
But I just thought it'd be fun to talk to you, Matt, about some of your life experiences as it relates to communication. We're kind of talking about how to take communication to the next level.
Right.
And as part of our Help at Home series.
Yeah.
But don't you think that communication, it's not like it's in a box. It's not like you'd be a great communicator at work and a bad communicator at home or vice versa. It's probably like...
Yeah. I mean, theoretically, I want to say you're absolutely right. But I mean, if I was to be honest and transparent, I think I am a very different communicator in a work setting than I am at home.
Okay.
And I don't say that with any pride.
Yeah.
Most of it is a conviction. But
like conviction as in God's convicting you that should
absolutely
change.
Absolutely. And it's a good question. The obvious question is why? Why would that?
Yeah.
Why would you be different?
Because your skill set doesn't go down.
No.
But what change? That's a really interesting thought. What changes when you step through the doors of your home, so to speak?
Right. Well, I don't know that I have the most articulate, well thought out answer. But the first thing that comes to mind is at home, especially because it's just me and my wife, Nancy, and it's a very personal place, and there's just a lot of personal connection, just the two of us, and we live in this little spot kind of in the woods, and it feels like it's just the two of us there, and that's a great thing, and because that's probably closer to the real me. Mm-hmm. At work, it's like this. Even though I'm passionate about my work, and I love serving a community and kids, and working with adults to try and make kids' lives better and give them opportunity. I love that work, but that's the here, and Nancy and I are here. It's a deeper thing somehow. Yeah. And you would think that would mean that I would somehow be better and more attuned to the right kind of good communication at home. I don't think I'm nearly as good of a personal communicator with someone I love deeply as I am when I know the work. You know that it's almost like I
wonder sometimes if it's that there's so much training available about work communication. There's so much emphasis on it. We're being compensated for it. You know, there's all of this public reward to do communication in a work setting a certain way, and almost none of that structure for home life.
That's a good point.
And so, like, when do we ever really honestly pause and go, like, yeah, my wife and I were going through, the required communication course for being a human.
Right.
It's not there.
It doesn't. I mean, maybe it exists. I haven't attended if it does. Yeah. That's a really good point. I mean, I can just rattle off the years worth of conversation and training around effective communication, especially in a leadership position in an organization.
Yeah.
Right? That most of my adult life, I've been in a leadership position in an organization. And you're right. The training, the expectations have been clear and pounded in over and over again, that it's almost second nature. I don't think I could say that about the home life. Look, I'm in my second marriage. My first marriage lasted 30 years, and it was in trouble by the 5th year.
Okay.
And a great deal of that was communication. I am Nance would probably call me an extreme introvert. A side of me that work doesn't get to see and know much, but I am at home, and I bring that up because I think that had a huge role in the difficulties and ultimate end of my first marriage. I was married to someone who talked a lot, talked quickly, sometimes talked much more out of emotion than I'm comfortable with. And, for my part, that led to a lot of hurt and a lot of processing what was being said and trying to keep up with. And, I'm one who likes to think about an idea and get to the bottom of it, and let's solve this, and then let's talk about this other. When it comes rapid fire and you want to talk about 10 things, I want to talk about one at a time. Okay. And that was really hard. It was really hard for my first wife, and I think it's even hard for Nancy. Nancy and I do a much better job than I did. I learned. But why am I rambling on about this? Because that's me at home. That's a very different human being, a very different communicator than me at school.
Okay. Well, thanks for your honesty about that. I mean, and also I love that you're always saying things like, I'm learning, and that's, it's a good example for all of us, just that humility and honesty about where we are. Right. I mean, it's probably true that I am in some ways as well. It's probably for some of the same reasons. But how do you think, is it that introverts are just doomed to struggle at home communication, or is there another way to look at that?
Well, okay, so introverts, extroverts, or someone who can freely sort of talk about what they're thinking and feeling, and someone who struggles to talk about. You could probably find an equal number of pros and cons for each, right?
Yeah.
Is an introvert any more doomed than an extrovert? Probably not. It's a different kind of doom, maybe.
Yeah, that's true.
But
all right, raise your hand if you're an extrovert. Raise your hand if you're an introvert. Okay.
And you probably it's those of us that are in relationships with the other type of communicator that, at least for me, it becomes very apparent the difficulties that causes, and it causes Nancy just as much difficulties as it does me. Yeah. When we're having a difficult conversation, and she has the ability to rapidly think about and communicate multiple levels of what's going on in her head, and you can see the value in that, right? That could be a great skill. Pair that with someone who likes to take things one piece at a time and think really deeply. But before I even allow my lips to move, that leads to these long pauses on my part, which, think about what that does to her. So, you don't care enough to speak. You don't
jumping to
you don't want to respond
to.
You don't care enough about me. I generate that pain because I'm an introvert.
Okay, so can we press into that for a sec? Because if you're watching from home or you're in your car right now listening to this, you're probably like, I resonate with what he's saying about her, or I resonate with him in this moment about some home relationship, I'm sure. You've said several times, I've learned. Okay, what tool can you give us when in the middle of that situation? What tool takes the tension down a little bit?
Well, honestly, the first thing that comes to mind in Sunday's sermon, there were 3 big things that I took away from that. The second one was you said, and it was in context with some other stuff you were saying, but you made a quick reference to, you said the words, Jesus changes people. And it was actually in context about like, you don't change people.
I remember
Jesus changes people. For me, that's the sort of the long, slow road to being a better communicator and someone who can have a relationship with Nancy far better than I ever could have had with someone 10, 15 years ago. Because with that comes this ability, the gift that I'm slowly being given to actually recognize other people as like children of God and deserving of not only love, but the things that they need. So if I can't give Nancy the words and the communication that she needs, that's not treating her in the way that God would want me to treat her. I owe her better than that. And I accept that. I recognize and accept that now when I could have never done that a few years back. So, I mean, that's the first thing that comes to mind. And secondly is just to recognize the flaws in being an introvert. Look, again, no matter where you are on the spectrum, there's good and bad there. One of the flaws of being on this end of an introvert kind of scale is that it's not okay for me to just sit and process my thoughts and let her wonder, what am I thinking? And do I care? And that's not okay. I don't have that right to just sit there.
Oh, that's so good. Because, Matt, it applies to an introvert, but it also applies to an extrovert.
Absolutely.
Because what it is like self-control, basically.
Absolutely.
Going, okay, yeah, you have a style, but you can't use your style as a weapon against the person that God has given you in your home, right? So if you're an extrovert, your tendency is going to be to say whatever's on your mind whenever it's on your mind. And that's also, so put yourself in an introvert's shoes. That's a very difficult thing.
Absolutely.
Just all these fireworks are going off.
Right. I have to love you more than I love my natural way of doing something. I have to place you above myself, right? It's always comes back to submission at one point or another. And I know that of me, and I know that I want that for her. And so that helps. Now, okay, first of all, Nance, if you're listening, I know I'm not any good at this yet, but I think she would recognize that I am trying in just the 3 years of our marriage, that I'm a little better now than I was a year ago, and better than I was a year before that. So.
Yeah. Well, hopefully that's true of all of us, and we'll keep moving that direction.
Right.
When we sat down today, we were talking a little bit about the first little bit of COVID. And I mean, I had the privilege of performing the wedding ceremony for Matt and Nancy.
That's right.
Not that long before COVID broke out, right?
Couple months,
really. And so you guys
September 28th.
Holy smokes, newlyweds, all excited for, what was going to come. And then COVID happens. But how did that affect you guys?
I think that deserves part of the credit for where we are today and why we're in a better place as communicators and partners than we would have been without COVID. Because when that day hit, March 13th, by the way, if you were in public education in this area. And at first we thought, okay, all right, yeah, big deal. We get an extra week before spring break, and then we're going to come back and, and then, a year or whatever later, we're still in COVID lockdown. Well, lockdown for schools meant that I was running the school from my dining room table, basically. Yeah. And Nance was running her office from the living room table 15 feet away. And And so we spent 24/7 together as newlyweds. And, we learned a lot about each other and learned to appreciate and laugh. And I got insight into her work and she got insight into mine because she got to hear all of my, leadership meetings and one-on-ones with my VPs and blah, blah, blah. So there was a great deal of connection that built through COVID that I don't know if it would have happened without it.
I mean, it probably could have gone either way for people, and it probably did. For other people, it might not have been something that drew them together. Depends, I guess, on how things were in the beginning and what. I mean,
we were newlyweds, right?
Yeah, so you were newlyweds.
You give
living on love.
You give you give more grace than that first few years than you could ever imagine having.
Sure.
And so for us, it really played out as a big.
That's really neat. What a blessing. Huh. If you don't know, Nancy is also a psychologist, and I think it's so interesting to have a principal and a psychologist. And so a lot of times when Melissa and I are hanging out with Matt and Nancy, it's fascinating because you both bring such interesting perspectives to conversations and things.
Her smart and me knuckle dragging sort of. Yeah, I get it.
One of the things that is also fascinating, we went on this Matt and I went on this men's trek last summer that he led. And I think there's like 7 other guys, 3 days in the wilderness of the Cascade Mountain Range.
Right.
Absolutely amazing. And it was fun to kind of watch communication happen in that setting where we kind of started out, I would say we started out as strangers and we left as friends,
That's right.
maybe even felt like a little bit more like brothers in some ways, which is pretty cool.
Right.
So there were some principles that you used in building that experience that I only realized at the end of it, and I don't know how explicit you were about it, or if it was just like second nature to you building that experience that then brought people together. But I was thinking about that experience where we had to do certain things, and there was a flow to it, and the nature of what we were doing was going to bring out probably either good communication or bad communication.
Right.
Can you think of like what principles you used to build that experience that might apply to home life?
Well, I mean, if I just think back on my planning around that trek, I know that I knew that it was going to be a total of 9 of us together, that only a couple of us had sort of existing, kind of strong, good kind of relationships already built. And so the majority, it would be kind of building a relationship. So that was very deliberate in my thinking around just some of the activities that I wanted to have conversations and have sentence starters and all of that to draw people in and to start to build communications. And my hope was to then take a building relationship and then turn it to, so what could each of us individually or as a group then give back, provide to our community, the church. And so that was my plan. We were partially successful, I think, in that plan. If I apply that to marriage, well, certainly relationship and friendship has got to be the starting point. If you can't, or you aren't at a place where you have complete trust and vulnerability and relationship with your spouse, I don't know how you get anywhere good until you get there first.
Okay, fair enough. But I would imagine a good percentage of people listening or watching right now are going to be going, "Gosh, I don't know."
Yeah.
What hope can we offer somebody who's going, "I want to get there, but I don't know how."
Yeah. Okay, this is probably better for Nancy than it is for me.
Okay, we'll just say this is not certified advice.
Yeah, this is not, but it does make me think. Go back to our first part of our conversation. What kind of communicators are you? Okay, if I had a couple sitting in front of me, and they were just friends with them, and we were talking about it, and then one of them said, hey, Matt, what are your thoughts on how do we, build a stronger relationship? And I guess I would want to know. Well, then tell me about how your communication is now. How does that normally go? What are the two of you like as communicators? I guess okay. Remember I said three things?
Yes.
The first one, I think was the first, maybe the third. No, I think it was the first one. Slow to speak, right?
Yes.
Remember that part?
Yeah.
Quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger.
Yeah. James 1:19.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I think listening deeply is a foundational piece to a relationship. And so to that couple, or to myself, let me just say this to myself, if we as partners can't listen deeply, because I care so much, and I actually care more about what your needs are and what you're trying to communicate than what I want to say or argue with. If I can put you in that position where you're actually the most important thing right now is for me to understand and to figure out you're probably halfway there already. I mean, especially if both people can do that.
Yeah.
I don't know what you couldn't talk about and what you couldn't work through, and how you wouldn't end up in a very deep relationship with someone if both people know that that's what the other person is always trying to do, is to hear deeply, and to care deeply. It would change the way.
Yeah, no, that's encouraging.
You'd want to say, right?
You're saying we can make it. We can do it.
Who couldn't do that?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a choice, right? I can choose to be fixated on my needs and what I want to say, or my hurts, or my demands, or I can choose to set all that aside and just hear yours first. And let's talk about that. And anyway.
That's good. Okay, I have two more questions for you, and they relate to some of the other parts of your life other than home, because I think it's fascinating, and hopefully they'll relate. But first one is, okay, you work with students. Obviously, you work with a staff that works with students, but you're around students, high school students, all the time, right?
Constantly. Yep.
Tell us about that. I mean, like, how do you have good communication if you're a parent, maybe, or maybe a sibling or something like that? But talking about communicating with young people. What do you think really is helpful for them in terms of communication?
Right. I think it goes back to the same thing. At least my work with teenagers, almost regardless of how they step into the relationship, whether it be maybe I've never had a conversation with this kid before. So for whatever reason, we're sitting at a table in the cafeteria, or in my office, or walking down the hall, whatever. First conversation. It seems to me that young people, teenagers, want to get a sense that I care about their thoughts and their positions. It is. So that's not that much different, right?
No, it's not.
They want me to ask, questions and hear and listen, and follow-up questions to probe deeper. They want to feel like they're valued, and their positions and their opinions and their experiences are valued by me. And if I can get to that point where they genuinely believe that I do care about, even if the conversation is about something they've done wrong, like, okay, I'm an administrator. I deal with bad behavior sometimes. Some of the most lasting relationships I've had with students are the students who spent a lot of time in my office because they did a lot of things wrong. And I think that's because I think they get that I care about them.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I have to deal with bad behavior, but we can talk about that. Most kids, I can actually get them to the point, and any, I think, good parent and good to realize, yeah, I messed up. That's not how I should have handled that, or that's not. And I think you get there through them believing that you care about them more than just the action.
How do you make them believe that?
A lot of it's like this right here.
Mm-hmm.
I sit there, look them in the eye, to be just genuine, to be vulnerable. How many times have I said to a kid, yeah, when I was your age, I did something like this, and my dad or my principal, that immediately goes, oh, yeah.
Yeah, you relate.
He's not so much different than me. So if we're similar in that way, then if Casteel's saying, that probably isn't the way you should have handled it, I could probably go, yeah, that isn't. I can be vulnerable too as a kid.
Yeah. Wow. That's great. Very cool. I hear you say ask questions. I think that's so important, and I really picked that up as you were just talking about that. Here's my last question for you.
Sure.
Is this: you've been in situations that are so tense. Some of the things you've shared about your time overseas in desperate situations in your military career, losing people. Man, that brings a whole different dynamic to communication.
Yep.
So do you have any wisdom for us on when things get really high pressure? I mean, like really high pressure. Maybe somebody's at home just going like, feels like the end of the world right now. Mm-hmm. So high pressure. Do you have any advice for people that are in a situation like that?
Well, I am, my wife will get a chuckle out of this too. I am not a fan of emotions. I realize they're there.
Yeah.
And I realize they can't be avoided at times. But for the most part, they're absolute killers of thoughtful response, thoughtful communication. So advice, look, I think I, for many, many years have learned to, in stressful situations, is to set emotions aside.
Okay.
And I don't know that that's something everyone can, or I wouldn't even say everyone should. I question my own advice here. But for me personally, when it's a really tough situation, I've been in situations that even just the thought makes my throat hurt right now.
Mm-hmm.
You have to take that and set it aside, or you say things that hurt people.
Yeah.
You lose the ability to show you care. You start to bark things. You start to you do more damage.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that happens even in marriage, right?
Yeah, sure does.
Sure does. Because it can be super hard at times. And it may not be, a buddy's life you just lost or something, but it hurts.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it can really, really hurt in those important relationships. And for me, if I allow the emotion to start coming out of my mouth, I instantly regret it. Instantly. How do I want her to feel? And I hate myself if I let words come out too quickly.
I think we've all been there.
Sorry.
No, thank you so much. That is great to hear from your heart, and appreciate so much what you've shared. One of the things really sticks with me. You said this about the trek. Mm-hmm. You said you came up with sentence starters.
Yeah.
And it just dawned on me, I wonder if I should put that much thought into my home life.
Yeah.
sentence starters. Maybe try that around the dinner table.
Yeah.
See if that'll change something.
One quick story. So this morning in advisory, so I have my advisory class group of kids that I meet with every other day. And we're going through a kind of a tough conversation that all advisories are going through right now, a very deliberate conversation around healthy and unhealthy relationships. And we're working towards actual abusive relationships. And we want to talk about those sort of things. And in the conversation today, it came up, what about that thing that we teach third graders to do and to use I statements? I feel like. How much better would we all be if we would just learn that lesson and hold on to that lesson for the rest of our lives? How many difficult, hurtful conversations happen because we don't follow that third grade rule about this is it, I feel like, and rather we point, we throw, we throw barbs and arrows and try and hurt. Anyway.
Yeah. Hey, Matt, thanks for sharing your life with us today.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it so much. I hope this has been helpful for you, and want to encourage you to subscribe, to share, and to stop by a Westside service some weekend, hopefully this weekend. And, you can find out more at westsidecommunitychurch.com. We'd love to see you online or even in person at our campus in the Portland, Oregon area. But we hope you have a great week. Thanks for joining us.